Next up, we got a banger of a featherweight scrap here as we have Hyder Amil coming in at plus 145. He goes up against Christian Rodriguez, who comes in at minus 165. Now, I'll start off on the Hyder Amil side of things, who is coming off of 2 straight losses. And those are the only 2 losses on his record. He was undefeated going into that fight against Jose Delgado, and unfortunately got starched in 26 seconds because of the lack of speed and obviously, the power that Delgado throws with. It was very hard for Amil to keep up with that. Then the last fight, this one was a surprising one where he came up short against Jamal Emmers, and that was a fight where he just did not look himself at all. He seemed to gas out in round 2, which is something we've never seen from him before. He often scrambles out of bad positions, can work to his feet pretty quickly, and then never settles, often just pushing that forward pressure and either looking for takedowns or looking to land combinations of his own. We saw him settle for those bad positions in the final 2 rounds against Emmers, a fighter I thought Amil would have a cardio edge against. It turns out, after digging into a little bit more and finding an interview, I think he did with James Lynch, he talked about that he was dealing with some stomach issues. He was dealing with a stomach ulcer and was close to having cancer due to that ulcer. And he said he was puking his brains out after the fight, did not feel like himself at all, but he got all that cleared up with. I believe he had surgery to remove the ulcer, if I'm not mistaken. And now he's saying he feels, the best he's ever felt in his entire career. So it's possible that we can see him get back to what we saw from him, during his 11-0 run to start his pro MMA career. This guy is, all gas, no brakes, throws decent power, mixes in the grappling very well, very good cardio, very good grappling defense as well. I love his scrambles. I just love the way the guy fights. He just never settles for bad positions. The only thing I wish is that we got to see him a little bit earlier in his career, but he did start his mixed martial arts career a little bit later than most people do. He got into the UFC when he's 33 years old. Now he's, I believe, 3-2 in the promotion. Not a guy that you expect to make a title run at this age, but he can still be very effective and very fun against some of the guys that are just hanging just outside of the rankings. But he's a very fun fighter and easily one of my favorite fighters that have come into the UFC because of his fighting style. And another guy that has been one of my favorites coming into the UFC is his opponent, Christian Rodriguez, who also finds himself on a 2-fight losing streak. And I feel a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's been forced to fight at 145 pounds. I like to call him Kelvin Gastelum light, in the fact that he is a guy that should be fighting a weight class lower, but he constantly misses weight at 135 pounds. He's been struggling with his weight issues, and he's been struggling to try to, maintain 135 pounds. So he's been forced to fight at 145 pounds, and that's really kind of worked against him, against guys that can utilize that size against him, right? We saw it in his short notice UFC debut against Jonathan Pierce. Julian Erosa was able to slap on that choke, and I feel like strength had a little bit of something to do with it. Obviously, the crazy squeeze of Erosa helps as well, but I think the strength of Erosa probably made it a little bit tougher for Rodriguez to get out of that spot. The cost to fight, we saw Rodriguez shooting desperation takedowns which in the first place was not a great idea in my opinion, and he struggled to do so, ended up getting out damaged and lost that decision. Then the Andre Fili fight, which was his last fight, right? He got out jabbed. I thought it was pretty obvious that he lost that fight 30-27. He was really struggling with the range there of Fili. He was struggling to get off on much success of his own, and I thought Fili had done enough to win that fight pretty convincingly. And Rodriguez was a big favorite going into that fight, if you guys remember, right? I think it was like minus 220, if I'm not mistaken. Skill-wise, the guy's very good. I remember when I studied up on him when he first came into the UFC, and I started with his first amateur fight, and it looked like he already had 15 amateur fights to his name because he was so slick, confident, disciplined, very technical with a lot of his strikes, with his takedowns, with his submissions. We obviously see him at his best in his fights against like Isaac Dalgarian. The Austin Bashi fight was very impressive too, right? When he can stop the takedowns and then just get off on his own striking. The Raul Rosas Jr. win, right? You see the potential in this kid. But I really think he suffers from the fact that he's being forced to fight up a weight class against stronger guys that are, probably harder for him to get positions against. But very well-rounded, has some decent experience, but he's been falling short in some of these fights as of late. And again, I point to it being more so of a weight thing rather than an actual skill issue here. Now, this weekend he goes up against Hyder Amil, who will hold a 2-inch height advantage, but Rodriguez will actually have a 1-inch reach advantage. And I hate breaking down this fight because both these guys are, fighters that I'm very high on, right? Or they're, some of my favorite fighters on the roster that don't really get talked about all that much because of their fighting styles and how skilled they are. Now, skill for skill, I think Rodriguez is the better fighter. I think he's capable of landing good combinations. He can mix it up with his grappling if he needs to, but I think that this is a fight that he'll struggle to deal with the cardio, the pace, the constant forward movement, the scrambling of Amil. Like, I think Rodriguez could stay ahead of the scrambles for maybe the first round or so, but I think as Amil continues to apply that pressure and showcase that cardio that has made him so difficult to deal with, I think that's going to cause Rodriguez a lot of problems, and then I think we'll see positions where Amil could actually get some takedowns and maybe hold Rodriguez down from there. So my prediction is actually going to be the underdog. I'm going to believe in Amil saying that his last fight was not himself, because it was not himself. I would not say that was a Hyder Amil fight. I think he just really struggled in terms of getting to his game because of all the health issues that he was dealing with. But now that he's saying that he's fully healthy and we can see a classic Hyder Amil fight, I'm not scared by the lack of knockout power from Christian Rodriguez. I feel like that pace and pressure from Amil is going to cause Rodriguez a lot of problems. And I think optically speaking, it's going to look really good with Amil constantly moving forward. Now, Rodriguez can land some good combinations off his back. Maybe he busts up Hyder Amil a little bit. Maybe he rocks him here and there. But if Amil can, if his durability stays strong as it normally has, unless he fights a crazy power puncher like Jose Delgado, and if his cardio stays as good as we've seen in the past, I feel like this is a very winnable fight where he looks to bully Rodriguez in the close quarters, land his combinations in close, and again, as long as his durability holds up, I feel like this is a fight that he can win. So it pains me to bet against a guy like Christian Rodriguez, who I think is very talented, but I feel like Hyder Amil has the perfect style to cause Rodriguez some issues here. So I'm going to go Hyder Amil and Amil by decision.